I would like to speak to the major world paradigm that exists among human beings, wherein people believe that there are good people and there are bad people, and you can tell by observing them, by what they do and how they are. This concept was illustrated to me very vividly at a job that I began one time. On one of my first days at that job, a lady walked up to me and said, "You'll discover who the good people are and who the bad people are." And it bothered me at the time, but I didn't understand why. Here's why. In the current state of the world, humankind is living with the knowledge of good and evil, the knowledge of good and bad, as a source of spiritual and soulish sustenance. Worldwide, and has been doing so from the beginning. When this happens, we are by default looking at each other and making judgments about each other of good and bad. Are these people that I'm observing good, or are they bad, and why? And we make judgments and respond accordingly. Hence, the world is at war. Hence, people are at war. Hence, there are fights, disagreements, factions, all types of division among humankind, on a large scale and on a small scale. The alternative to this is living in the realm of life, which is God Himself. When you are living in the realm of life through Christ and in God, when you are living in the realm of life, you approach people from a completely, entirely different paradigm. You approach people with, how can I impart life to this person? How can I get this person to life, and the most life and living and love and peace and joy, all the components that make up real life? You look at people and that is your first response. That is your motive. That is the driving force which drives you as you observe these people and interact with them. This is what Jesus Christ did, whose main driving purpose in life was to give life in all of its fullness. He did just this. In the book of Isaiah, there is a passage that speaks of him, talking about the way he will judge. It states very clear that he will not judge by what he sees and by what he hears, but he will judge with righteous judgment, which is the complete opposite of what we human beings do, subsisting and finding our sustenance on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This tactic is employed by the one who is attempting to destroy all of humanity. His most subtle tactic has been from the beginning and is now to get human beings to partake of the knowledge of good and evil, spiritually and soulishly. When this happens, we will naturally accuse each other, judge each other, fault find with each other, separate ourselves from each other, destroy each other, etc. This is the natural result of partaking of the knowledge of good and evil as a source of spiritual and soulish sustenance for our lives. Therefore, this one who is attempting to destroy all of humanity need not do much else beyond getting us to partake of the knowledge of good and evil. For once he has done that, we will divide ourselves and conquer ourselves. This is the first thing that he got human beings to do. He did not get human beings to hit each other, to lie to each other, to spit on each other, to steal from each other. Nope. All of those things only came as a result of human beings partaking of the knowledge of good and evil as a source of spiritual and soulish sustenance, instead of partaking of God, who is life, as their source of spiritual and soulish sustenance. The same thing happens today. It was not a one-time event, as spoken of in the Bible. It certainly happened that time in the Bible, but it has been happening and is happening now ad infinitum the world over. Simple observation will show you that this is true. The principle, whether it was a literal event or not, it was certainly a true spiritual and soulish principle. And it still takes place today, the world over. People are still continuing to partake of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil as a source of spiritual and soulish sustenance. And it is still wreaking havoc and destroying humanity the same as it did back then. The alternative is contemporary as well. Just as it was then, so it is now. The alternative is returning to God Himself, who is the source of all life. And when we partake of God in Christ Jesus, Yeshua HaMashiach, His Son, we return to the realm of life, in which we leave off of that stupid realm of knowledge of good and evil which divides us and conquers us, and we return to pure life for ourselves first and for all of those around us. And we begin to look at each other with less judgment and more life and more love and more good intention, even those who, quote, are bad, unquote, because we realize how they got there by partaking of the knowledge of the good and evil. Return today to the tree of life. Return today to the source of sustenance for your soul and for your spirit, which is Christ Himself and God Himself in Christ. Return to the life-giving source of sustenance for our souls and for our spirits, which is God Himself through Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, God's Son. Do it soon. Do it today. Do it now. And experience life and less death.